Up next, we have Jack.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Jack Janett, and I'm a second-year medical student at Texas A&M. I saw that we had another Aggie in here, Gig'em. Um, so the title of my presentation is DKK-1 Blockade and Osteosarcoma, Considerations for Future Clinical Trials. And throughout this talk, I'll be breaking down the mechanisms of some basic science and then leveraging this information to hopefully implement into some meaningful strategies to put into clinical practice. Okay, so as many of you may know, osteosarcoma is a fairly aggressive and rare malignant bone tumor. It usually affects adolescents below the age of 15 years old, unfortunately. And osteosarcoma can be so lethal because of its likelihood to metastasize throughout the body, particularly to the lungs. And osteosarcoma exerts its negative effects usually by dysregulating numerous cellular pathways, one of which is the Wnt beta-catenin pathway, which in the bone, this pathway usually differentiates mesenchymal stem cells into osteoblasts, which, as you may know, those are the cells that build and repair our bone. So if we ignore this X for a second and we look at this pathway right here, when Wnt is around, this pathway is turned on. It will bind to a protein called frizzled, and then activated frizzled, and LRP will recruit a signaling molecule right here called disheveled, labeled DVL. And disheveled will actually block the formation of a destruction complex. That's seen right here. And because of this blockage, beta-catenin will accumulate in the cytoplasm, and then it will eventually migrate into the nucleus, where it will bind to transcription factors and displace co-repressors, allowing for gene transcription and normal bone homeostasis to occur. However, when Wnt is not around, this process is turned off. There's nothing blocking the destruction complex. So right here, and this destruction complex will then bind to the beta-catenin, and through kinases, it will phosphorylate it, essentially tagging the beta-catenin to be degraded by proteasomes in the cytoplasm. So in this case, there is no gene transcription occurring, which is a bad thing. So why do I mention all this? Well, in osteosarcoma, it secretes and releases a lot of a protein called DKK-1, which you can see right there. And DKK-1 comes into play because it will bind to LRP right here. And then this causes LRP and frizzle to dissociate and basically blocking this whole signaling pathway to occur. And this can be so detrimental because not only will this block normal bone homeostasis, it will also allow for tumor progression and potential metastasis to occur. So currently there are numerous groups out there in the world that are investigating pharmacological approaches to blocking DKK-1's effects on this pathway. I've broken this into three main categories or approaches. The first being small molecule inhibitors. Small molecule inhibitors work by basically competing with DKK-1 and binding to the LRP receptor. And it basically blocks this whole process from starting from the very beginning. There's also nucleic acid inhibitors, and this is actually being investigated right now by a group at Texas A&M, in which partially sparked my interest in this. And this includes antisense oligonucleotides, which will go and bind to the RNA of DKK-1 and block the recruitment of ribosomes and basically block the translation of the RNA into the mature DKK-1 protein. Lastly, there are biomacromolecules, which include antibodies, which is what I want to focus the rest of my talk on. These antibodies, which include BHQ-880 right here, have shown great promise in not only preventing the growth of the primary tumor, but preventing the spread and the metastasis of various types of cancers, including multiple myeloma and prostate cancer. As I mentioned in the beginning of this talk, in basic science research, a scientist will, propose a model, they'll add a chemotherapeutic agent, and then they'll see if the tumor gets larger or smaller. But as many as us know, it's much more complicated than this in reality. When a patient walks into the door, there are numerous factors that could affect the efficacy of a chemotherapeutic agent, such as, what the ideal patient is for that treatment, the timing of adding the treatment, as well as where you're going to add it. All of these factors are essentially as important of the question of efficacy itself, because efficacy can essentially be 0 to a 100 based on how you utilize and leverage this knowledge and take everything into account. As a medical student who I'm interested in bridging the gap between bench to bedside, I am proposing a speculative clinical trial that can hopefully optimize this perspective and improve patient outcomes for those undergoing osteosarcoma. And before I get into my exact protocol, I did want to mention that there is a group out there that already looked at the same antibody that I'll be investigating, BHQ-880. But this was done on multiple myeloma. And they did find that when this drug was administered, the primary osteolytic lesion did not show any signs of stabilization when this drug was inserted. However, at distal bone sites where the DKK-1 levels were much lower, they did find that there was an increase in bone density. So if we extrapolate this information, I'm suggesting that DKK-1 antibodies such as BHQ-880 can be used prophylactically to prevent the spread and metastasis because these are much smaller lesions and they'll have much lower levels of DKK-1 that'll be manageable for the antibodies. So with that, all that being said, I am proposing a randomized phase 1b or even potentially a phase 2 multi-center biomarker-driven clinical trial. The ideal patient would have an aggressive primary tumor with very high levels of systemic DKK-1, but they would also have undetectable micrometastases that are just starting to get in the process of growing. We would then add standard chemotherapeutic treatment as well as prophylactic ablation therapy, and then this would be a 28-day dosing regimen of BHQ-880 antibodies at doses of 10 milligrams per kilogram. We would then evaluate their response via imaging and molecular biomarkers such as nuclear beta-catenin, osteopontin, which suggests differentiation of stem cells in the bone, as well as DKK-1 serum levels. And if successful, this would prove DKK-1 antibodies as a potential avenue for treating bone metastasis through osteosarcoma. And this would hopefully encourage the development of precision-based therapies to help adolescents that are undergoing osteosarcoma or various types of cancer. And here are my references, and thank you very much.
How often are they monitoring levels of DKK-1 at this point in time, or is it really non-existent in clinical practice?
It's pretty non-existent right now. Most of the investigation that's going on is in animal models.
Please support our mission to improve quality of patient care through education. Join us, follow us, and share this content with family and friends.